Power of the Human Mind as Seen in the Cask of Amontillado by Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe was considered one of the most controversial authors of his time. His life, like his works, were dark, horrifying, dealt with death, yet captivating. Death plagued Poe in his short 40 years, and many contribute his dark works to this. In the Cask of Amontillado, Poe uses the theme of pride, irony, and symbolism to portray how alarming and depraved the human mind can be. Poe was born January 19, 1809, to Elizabeth and David Poe Jr. He was one of 3 children. When Poe was 3, his father, who was an alcoholic, abandoned the family and was never seen again. That same year, his mother fell ill with tuberculosis and shortly died, leaving all 3 children orphaned. John and Frances Allen took in the young Poe. They never formally adopted him, but raised him as their only son. At 6, the family left for England, where Poe attended the Manor House School, which built a foundation for his career as a writer. Upon their return to Richmond, Virginia, Poe attended the University of Virginia, eventually joined the military, and then went to West Point. He never graduated from any, never received a degree. Upon his dismissal from West Point, Poe focused his career as a writer. Poe was surrounded by death in his life. His mom at a young age, his grandmother, his brother. But the most influential death seemed to be that of his wife, Virginia, who was also his cousin. They were married when she was 13. Poe was 26. After her death, Poe's world spiraled downward. He became an alcoholic, moved from place to place, never really settled. He was found in a tavern in Baltimore, in dirty clothes, incoherent, was taken to the hospital, where he died on October the 7th, 1849, at 40 years old, and the cause was unknown. According to Karen Lang in her book Nevermore, Poe's last words were, "Lord, help my poor soul." In the story of the Cask of Amontillado, we have 2 main characters, Montresso and Fortunato. It's a story of revenge. We see at the beginning of the story that this revenge is plotted due from an insult, and the steps and the elaborate plan that Montresso takes to seek revenge on Fortunato. It deals with an imaginary cask of Amontillado that he tells is in the family tombs in the catacombs of Montresor, and he needs to see if the money he spent was worth it, if it's real. Amontillado is a type of sherry. And so we see in the beginning of the story a first use of pride that was displayed by Montresso. He's so prideful that he wants to seek revenge, and we see that almost immediately. He says that the 1,000 injuries of Fortunato I had borne as the best I could, but when they ventured upon insult, he vowed revenge. He never really elaborates on, what the injuries were or what the insult was, but to him, it felt that it deserved a revenge, and that revenge was, murder. I personally could never see that anybody could insult me or my family to the point where, I think they deserved death. But we have to kind of look at when the story was set also, and the time period. And back then, people's name meant a lot. And, so if your name was insulted, it could mean if you had a business that, people would, no longer, purchase goods from you. And so, it possibly could have been a big thing. And, ultimately, this pride that Montresor has about these insults, it's a downfall to, his moral compass that, he needs to seek revenge, in the form of murder. Then we also see the pride of Fortunato. he comes off as a pretty arrogant man in the beginning. You know, Montresor approaches him about this imaginary, cask of Omatildo, and says that he's unsure if it's if he paid a good price, and so um, knowing that Fortunato is a connoisseur of wine and that he's going to take the bait, but Montresor tries to tell him, no, I'll go see Lucius and I'll get him to tell me. And Fortunato, being prideful, is no, no, I'll go with you. Take me to it. Show me where it is. And so he's kind of his own pride ends up eventually leading to his death, and he falls into the hands of Montresor. Secondly, the Casa Matildo is it's filled with lots of irony. Poe used lots of irony in all of his stories, and he would use verbal and dramatic irony. So the first form of irony that I found upon in the story was the once they reach the catacombs that they're descending, and it's cold, it's dark, it's damp, and Fortunato starts to cough, and so Montresor, he stops and oh, we should return, and which is kind of shows some irony in the fact that he's trying to give Fortunato a way out, and but he does know that Fortunato is not going to take it, and so he continues, and Fortunato says, it's just a cough, it's nothing, it will not kill me, and Montresor knows that the cough is not going to kill him because he is going to kill him, and it's kind of an ironic statement that he would say that the cough will not kill me. And so then the second form of irony that I found in the story was at the very end, the very last words in the story, in pos requiescat, which means rest in peace, that Montresor tells him as Fortunato is in the tomb, and he is putting the last brick up to seal him in, seal his fate, that he tells him to rest in peace. He's in a tomb. There's nothing peaceful about it, and so he's going to die a horrible death. There's nothing peaceful. He's not going to receive a proper burial. His family probably doesn't even know, what happened to him, where he's at, and but yet he tells him to rest in peace, and then some 50 years later, Montresor is still talking about this, and so was he really ever at peace with what he did? Is he making a confession on his deathbed? I just find the word peace in this whole story, kind of ironic. And the last thing I want to touch on is the use of symbolism in the story. And my first form of, symbolism was Fortunato's name, which in Italian means a lucky one or fortunate. And, there is nothing fortunate that happens to Fortunato. He dies a very unfortunate death. He's not lucky at all. And so, he falls to Montresor's vengeance of revenge, and, not receiving a proper burial there again, is very unfortunate. And, for him to have the name Fortunato. And then the last use of symbolism that I found within the story is their costumes. We see in the beginning of the story, they're at this carnival, and a place of, happiness and celebration, so to speak. We see Montresor dressed in all black and black mask and, covered. Usually we symbolize black with death. And so we see Montresor dressed like that. And then we see Fortunato, who is dressed as a jester. He has these striped pants on, this conical cap, And, historically, a jester was known as a fool. And so, kind of symbolizes that, Montresor is death, and Fortunato is the fool for, believing this story and falling into what Montresor has to offer about the imaginary cask of, Amatildo. And so that, with Edgar Allan Poe is considered one of America's most popular and, like I said, controversial writers. He was rejected, for many generations, and he did endure a lot of death, which contributed to the way that he wrote. And still today, almost 200 years later, we are learning about him and, reading his works and uh, on irony and symbolism and, figurative language and all the things that he offers in his word. And so the last thing I have to leave with is a quote from Poe that says, "From every depth of good and ill, the mystery which binds me still, from the thunder and the storm, and the cloud that took the form, when the rest of heaven was blue, of a demon in my view." Poe.